Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. So I just made it back from vacation. Today I'm going to be talking about the stores I went to and the albums I picked up. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist I put together every week, and the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So one of my favorite things to do while I'm on vacation is hit up record stores. Regardless of where I go, I always have to find some of the local stores to hit up. We were going down to Florida this year. A couple of my favorite record stores are down there, so there's two that I definitely had to hit. When we were driving through the Charlotte area, though, I didn't realize how close we were to Noble Records. I definitely would have stopped in, checked out Dylan and his store. Great YouTube channel. Looks like he's got a great store there, too. One of the places I definitely want to hit up. Next time I'm in that area, I'm definitely going to make sure I stop. But we got down to Florida, and there was two stores I absolutely had to go to. One was in Daytona Beach, and the other one was in Orlando. But before I get to those stores and the albums I picked up, when I got home, there were a couple albums sitting on my doorstep waiting for me. One I've been waiting for, almost 40 years to get reissued, and that is Make It Big by Wham. This is the only Wham album I really like. I know they just reissued their first album also, but this is the only one that has a couple of big tracks I really enjoy listening to. This is actually the limited edition white version of it. This actually sold out pretty quick here in the U.S. I think I ordered this from England is where I got this copy from. But great album. Great to see that finally get reissued. They're also the 25th anniversary of The Decline by NoFX also just got reissued. This is another album that sold out pretty quick here in the U.S. I actually ordered this from the Fat Records website from Australia. So it was a little bit pricier. I had to pay a little bit extra to get this shipped over here. Now, this is also different than the version that was sold here in the U.S. through the Fat Records store. It was like a splatter version, and this is just on translucent red vinyl. Great album, one of my favorite punk albums of all time. Just a great one. And then there was a new album that was waiting for me, and that's the new album Heaven and Hell by Sum 41. Never been a big Sum 41 fan. I do love the first couple of albums, and so far I've been loving this album. So when we were first trying to figure out where we wanted to go for vacation, it was kind of left up to me. And I decided, let's go down to Daytona Beach, really because it's a fun place to go and visit, especially this time of year. The weather's always great down there. Also, it's within an hour's distance of two of my favorite record stores, so I know I could hit up both of them while we were down there. Hopefully my wife isn't watching this, so she doesn't know there was ulterior motives to us going down to Florida this year, but I was really glad to hit up both those shops. So the first place we stopped at is called Atlantic Sounds. It's in Daytona Beach. It's actually a store I didn't know anything about until, I think it was last year we were down in Orlando. I had driven up to Daytona Beach for the day and just came around the corner and just saw CDs and vinyl on their canopy. Caught my attention, pulled over. I didn't have a whole lot of time last year to go through their store, but I did find some really great stuff there last year. It's a really cool shop, one that I always stop at whenever I'm down in that area. I didn't take any photos inside the store, but I did do a YouTube short video. I'll add it to the video here. It's a great shop to go through. The great punk selection, great rock selection to go through. A lot of new stuff that I don't see in a lot of other stores. I always find down there in Atlantic Sounds. They do have a great CD selection also. But what really makes Atlantic Sounds different from a lot of the other record stores I go to is their massive used selection. So the store's got two separate rooms. You go over into the second room, and it's literally nothing but used albums. And they do have a small selection of used cassettes up on the wall too, but it's a space that I could spend hours in digging through. I didn't find anything that really caught my attention, kind of skimming through some of the used stuff when I was down there this year. But it's a store, like I said, I could easily spend several hours going through their used selection. I did find a couple of really cool new albums to pick up though. The first one is one I haven't seen before. So this is the Living End Modern Artillery. So Living End, they're a punk band formed in the late part of the 90s. Their self-titled debut album was released in 98. Easily one of my favorite punk albums, the later part of the 90s. So Modern Artillery was the band's third album. After this, I didn't really like anything else that they really did, but I love their first three albums. I've never seen this on vinyl anywhere. So this is a music on vinyl release. It's on translucent red vinyl, and there's only 1,000 copies I think that they pressed of this. And this is number 265. So just a great album. Like I said, one I haven't seen on vinyl anywhere. I'm glad to finally have a copy of it. And then the second album that I grabbed from Atlantic Sounds is an album I've seen before. Just for one reason or another, I just always end up not grabbing it. But it's Pump Up the Volume by NoFX. So this was released about 7 months or so after The Decline came out. And that's like the beginning of the end of the really great period, I think, for NoFX, at least in my opinion. You got this album, you've got War on Errorism, and then Wolves and Wolves Clothing. I think were the last 3 really great albums from the band. Even though I'd probably still put this, as far as like their 90s and early 2000s albums go, I'd probably put this maybe a little bit closer to the bottom of that list, but still a really good album, and one that it's fun to kind of go back through and check out again. And since we were only down in that area for a couple of days, I only had one other record store that I had time to go to, and it was the one record store I absolutely have to go to every time I'm down in that area, and that's Park Ave CDs in Orlando. Just a great store. And it was funny. I was so excited when we got there. I forgot to take any pictures inside or outside. So I'll try to find some online to put up here in the video. So it kind of gives you a feel of the store. So when you get there, you pull up and it's just like at the end of a strip mall. It doesn't really look like much of anything. And you go inside and it's just an absolute treasure trove inside the record store. And it's funny because normally when my wife and I go to record stores, she'll go off and look at her own thing for, a few minutes. And then she normally ends up just kind of walking around with me, looking at whatever I'm looking at. I will say we spent a pretty good amount of time inside Park Ave. And she was off doing her own thing, looking at her own CDs, looking at her own records, going through the used selection there. And, she, like I said, she was really impressed with the selection at that store. I ended up having to put a bunch of stuff back. I had at least 3 or 4 albums that I was going to get on top of what I ended up walking out with. That I had to put back just because I was going to spend way too much money there. The one thing I can always say about Park Ave is every time I'm there, I find a bunch of albums that I just don't see at other record stores. When I went down there last year, they had a whole bunch of box sets that I hadn't seen. This year, the box set selection wasn't as great as it was the year before, but I did find a bunch of great albums. Stuff, like I said, I just don't see everywhere else. First one I grabbed is Buddha by Blink-182. So this is a demos album from the band. Some of the stuff ended up being on their debut album, but I already have a copy of this. It's on translucent green vinyl. This is a different copy, though. This is a more limited copy. This is on yellow, red, and blue vinyl. I know a lot of people give me crap about, having multiple copies of albums, but really just my favorite bands like Blink-182, MXPX. Those are basically the only bands I'll buy a lot of different versions of the albums from. But like I said, I hadn't seen this one. It was definitely one I had to grab. And I guess I should add that inside this limited edition version, there's a little mini poster and a postcard in there. All that came included in there. It's in great condition, and it cost me like $25. The next album is one that's probably a little more readily available than the Blink-182 album. I come across this one not very often, but enough times I probably should already own a copy of it. But that is The Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking by Roger Waters. I think this is Roger's debut solo album. This was released back in 83. This is a 1983 pressing of it. It's not an original pressing. It's a reissue from 83. But it's got the, I don't like that it's got the censored cover on there. I was trying to find one that's uncensored, but those tend to run a little bit more than I want to pay for it, or it's generally not in really good condition when I do find a copy of it. I will say the only thing wrong with this one, there's a little bit of wear on the side of the jacket here, but as far as the album itself, it's in pristine condition. It looks absolutely great. It sounds great. It's a great looking copy of it. $20 or $25 is all I paid for it, so I was definitely happy to grab a copy of that one. And I guess I should add that my wife found the Roger Waters album and the Blink-182 album in the used section. She knew I wanted both of those, so she was the one that actually pointed those out to me. So I guess I'm on the record as saying that I'm not a big fan of Weezer. I like the Blue album, I like the Green album, I like a couple of other things here and there that they've done throughout their career, but a lot of it I think is kind of forgettable. But anyway, that's a whole different topic. So when I came across the copy of the Green album, of course I had to grab it. I didn't have it. The only album I have of theirs is the Blue album. And actually, I should take that back. I've got the Blue album. I got the TL album also. And I think I've got maybe one other album from them. But anyway, I needed a copy of the Green album, so I picked it up. It's on just a standard black vinyl there. And, it's a really good album. I don't think it's the best the band ever did. I think the Blue album is always going to be my favorite album from the band. But it's definitely one that it's been a while since I've seen a copy of it in stores. So I was definitely happy to grab a copy of it. Another album that I don't think I've ever come across until I was down in Park Ave, snatched it up as soon as I saw it, is the self-titled debut album from the Distillers. So if you're unfamiliar with the Distillers, they are a punk band. Early part of the 2000s, I think, is when this album came out. I guess probably the best way to describe them is like a harder, angrier version of early Hole, I think is the best way to put it. If you're a fan of Live Through This, you might be a fan of the Distillers if you check them out. The lead singer is actually married to Tim Armstrong of Rancid at the time. Because it actually has, you look on the back of it, it says Brody Armstrong on the back of it. She was going by her maiden name or her married name on this album. And that's cool because it's on this purple vinyl. Looks really cool. Like I said, just a great album. If you're unfamiliar with the Distillers, I definitely recommend checking this album out. So that was what I initially picked up from Park Ave. And then I went outside. I will say that, like I said before I finished up on Park Ave, my internet did not work inside their record store. So it's hard for me to kind of refresh myself by like scrolling through Discogs, things like that I normally do in a record store to try to help me think of things that to look for. So I went outside, sat in my car for a few minutes, and then I decided to go back inside and grab one more album because it was one that I've been looking for. And like I said, I didn't want to like burst my budget going in there, so I put some stuff back. This is one of those albums I put back, but I ended up going back inside and grabbing it just because it is a fantastic live album. But the album is They've Actually Gotten Worse Live by NoFX. So this was released early part of the 2000s. And this live album was actually the album that finally made me or forced me to check out some of the other stuff from NoFX, like Wolves and Wolves Clothing, I think in particular, was the album that I checked out after this. And then Never Trust a Hippie was a EP that the band released around that same time as Wolves and Wolves Clothing. So this is a fantastic live album. This is one of the better live albums. I think this is probably the best live album that the band has ever put out. And it's one that I don't see very often. I've actually had this one on my Discogs want list for a while. It was actually a little cheaper at Park Ave than it even was on Discogs. So I'm glad I grabbed a copy of it. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what some of your favorite out-of-town record stores are to go to. There's a bunch of them, especially in the Florida area. I mean, if I had enough time, I would love to go on down into South Florida. Some really great, like, little hole-in-the-wall, middle-of-nowhere record stores that can be absolute gold mines down there that I love stopping at. And I always find something good when I go down there to them. But there's some great stores out in the Chicago area that I love going to when I'm out that way, and some great stores down in Ohio that I love hitting up. But let me know what some of your favorites are. Like I said, I wish I would have stopped at Noble Records when we were coming through the Charlotte area. It's another one that I'll definitely make sure I have time next time I'm down that area to hit up that store. But let me know what you guys think. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.